Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking a part of your lunch hour with us today. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Sherry Harrington. I'm a real estate agent here in San Diego. And as a realtor, I see families navigating through major life transitions all the time, and housing is just one part of this bigger picture. So, right now, as we speak today, I'm actually dealing with this with my own parents. So I realize how much, families have to go through, and there's just so much that we don't understand, and how stressful it can be when you're in the thick of it. So it's a super emotional thing, and there's a lot of decisions that need to be made, and they can feel urgent very quickly. And just kind of an interesting side note, I these are my friends, Liz, Colleen, and Kristine, and they all know what's been going on with my parents for a very long time, and everything came to a head yesterday, right ahead of this call. So this is all very pertinent information. So I personally don't want the people in my world to go through this same stress or confusion if it can be avoided. So that's why I wanted to bring these professionals together and help us guide the information. So today we have Colleen Robinson, who's an estate attorney, Kristine Swisher, who's Medicare and long-term care specialist, and Liz Faramo, who's a senior placement specialist and a fiduciary. So each of them bring a different piece of the puzzle: legal authority, healthcare, long-term care planning, and navigating care and living options. So we're going to move through each section, and then we're going to open it up for questions at the end. So if you would hold your questions, that'd be amazing, or you can drop them in the chat just so you don't forget if you have menopause brain like me. And thank you for being here. This is all super important. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So give me one second. I got way too many things going on here. So we're going to start with Colleen, who is a trust or an estate attorney. So Colleen, I'll hand it over to you. I think you're muted.
Mute myself. There we go.
There you go.
My name is Colleen Robinson. I am the owner of Heritage Law Group. We have offices in Carlsbad, Fallbrook, and in Temecula. I just think this topic is so important for a variety of reasons. Where I'm going to focus on today is really just the assumptions that I see families make, and the misunderstandings and as well, because it's those misunderstandings, like as Sherry said, can make these crisis situations seem even worse. But I think that those are looking for information and starting these conversations, it's so vitally important as well. So if you could advance the slide there for me. So, what adult children don't often realize until it's too late. That's really where I'm focusing today. So, if you could advance that one more time, that'd be fantastic. So, this is truly like the biggest misconception that I see. People assume that it's my spouse, I'm the child, I'm the oldest one, I'm the sister, or I'm the best friend, or whatever it may be, or I'm the one that lives the closest, that automatically gives you legal authority. Nobody is assumed with legal authority. So even my husband, we're married, we've been married for 10 years, is not assumed to be the best person to make my medical decisions for me. Why? Because for all anybody would know is that I was visiting a divorce attorney the day before, and he's like the last person that I want to make my medical decision for me. So there is no such thing as automatic authority, right? Within the absence of like a healthcare directive. So once your parents, they are legal adults, there's nobody that can actually manage their life for them, even if you want to. And that can be surprising, especially when you're faced with, or you don't have, do you have any legal documentation like a healthcare directive or a power of attorney, where a lot of families get that big stop sign and it can be devastating in the moment. Go ahead, advance it. So without a financial power of attorney, bank accounts are frozen, meaning you have no access to bank accounts. So if your parents are in the hospital, for example, you have no idea whether their mortgage is being paid automatically, utilities. Or is the income coming in, whether it's from Social Security or from their pension or retirement accounts, you have zero access with that information, which means that then you can't turn around and make sure that their obligations are being paid. If you are in a situation where to pay for ongoing care, you may have to sell a piece of property, or maybe they're in the middle of a transaction, you're unable to do so, and you can't access even other resources such as investments or like brokerage accounts or those kinds of things as well. So I put down here like the mortgage doesn't pause just because of a stroke. Those things still have to be paid, and there's no like justification for the delay of that, right? If there's no medical authority, you may have a situation where the doctors won't speak to you. Court are, I mean, I'm sorry, the hospital and hospital administrators, they're not there to be mediators either. If there's a conflict amongst the families, they may very well tell families somebody needs to go and get a court order. So which that anytime that there's court involved in having to get court order and get court orders for either financial or medical decisions, it takes time. There's no immediate anything when it comes to court. So decisions delayed is justice delayed as well, as one of my law professors used to say. So in the meantime, while you're trying to get stuff from the court system, which requires hearings, who is making the decisions on behalf of your loved one? And also this can cause family conflicts. A lot of times, like family tensions and family dynamics, all the family drama, this is where it comes center stage is in moments of crisis and difficulty as well. So as I already alluded to before, relationships do not create that legal authority. And when I do these workshops, it's also like the misunderstanding too that you nominate like or you have godparents like that. The understanding with my parents choosing godparents for me was that they were going to become my guardians if something happened to my parents. That is not automatic either in those situations. Go ahead and advance it. So without proper documentation, you're essentially a stranger. You've got that big stop sign, and it can cause all kinds of frustration too. Because then what do you do? Well, so if your parents' mortgage isn't getting paid, who's going to cover the cost? And so you can get access to that. We see this a lot even in probate cases, is that the accounts are frozen until you get a court order. So who's going to pay the debts that are accumulating or the bills that are coming in or whatever? And this is where you see families doing GoFundMes, either on Facebook or social media as well. So you can't sign any paperwork, you can't access any information, can't manage anything. And at the bottom, I put on here, you may need a conservatorship, which is what we also refer to as living probate. It's a probate case that's opened on your behalf while someone's living. So there's like two different kinds of probate cases. So if your parents pass away or a loved one pass away without a trust, this is what the court system looks like. And I'm not sophisticated enough to put this all on one slide, so I apologize. So this is how the probate system works here in Southern California. And then you see here, I'm pointing to it like you can see me pointing, but it says all accounts are frozen. So even with the power of attorney, if you have a power of attorney, and like, for example, I use this completely made up example of my great aunt Sally. She executed a power of attorney in her last years of her life. Her husband passed away years before, and she created just so I could make sure her bills are paid in case she's in the hospital. But as soon as she passes away, I no longer have access to her account. Now the only way I get access is through a court order once we initiate the probate process. So once someone passes away, you have to file the initial paperwork, you have to put an ad in the newspaper, and then you get your court hearing, which is usually 6 to 8 weeks after you file. Once you have that court hearing, and assuming all of your stuff is in order, now you've got the authority to show to the banks to get access. So that could be 2, 3, 4 months after someone passes away before you have access to any of their financial accounts. And that's what I was mentioning too. This could also occur when mom and dad's in the hospital. You don't have that power of attorney. You have to go to court to apply for a conservatorship. It's that same gap, that financial gap. Who's paying the difference in this period? Because the creditors are not going to wait. Then you gather assets, you can sell real estate, and then you have to petition the court to distribute the assets again. So there's 2 court hearings to a formal probate. as to why it takes 18 to 24 months and to go through this process. Sometimes it's longer, and it costs approximately 5% the value of the estate. So if all they had was a piece of real estate here in Southern California, and let's say it's worth $1 million, it's $50,000 in different kinds of fees that are coming out, are being taken away essentially from the beneficiaries. This slide. An old trust, so this is really important, is to start having these conversations sooner rather than later. Maybe they do have a trust, but maybe it was drafted back in the Reagan administration. I've looked at a couple of those in this last quarter that were drafted in the 80s and haven't seen the light of day since then. Um, People have probably passed away since those were written, or perhaps family dynamics have changed. Like the kids that are listed are probably minors at that time, and now they're full grown adults with kids of their own. The laws have changed significantly. Even since 2010, the laws have changed. And assets have changed more than likely. They may not have the same bank accounts anymore. They may not have the same real estate any longer. It just may not make a whole lot of sense. It's not actually aligned with their current reality. So as life changes, so should their estate plan as well. Advance to the next slide. So if there's no documents, then the court gets to decide what happens. So the families are no longer in control. That's when conservatorships may be required. It's a very public process. There's a lot of people that get involved in these types of cases. It's expensive. It takes forever, and it can create more family conflict too. And this is really what I don't think a lot of people see coming is the processes involved when we with the probate court system. So I really feel for people in this situation. You have parents that are older than you are. You may have kids. You may have a full career. You may be split by coastal as well. It is hard. And then when you have a health crisis that occurs, it's really hard to navigate this because you're being pulled like almost in two different directions. And sometimes it's what I've noticed is that legal chaos occurs or hits at like the worst possible moment when it's like the one last thing that you didn't see coming just hits you right in the face. And so I think that it's having the knowledge, getting the education, finding the support so that you don't spiral out of control and just find your next little step that you can take. You can advance it there. So these are just like some questions to ask. Like I think that everybody should have family meetings. Do you currently have a trust? Do you have a will? Like at least there's something. Is there a medical power of attorney or a healthcare directive? Who is your financial agent? Where are you keeping your documents? And when were they last updated as well?
Oh, I'm feeling all
Sometimes
this
like
right now.
even generationally, like my parents, like my dad specifically, it's like he operates in the mindset that things are kept private until you need to be included. And that just sets our families up for failure. And then you're operating in this like moment of crisis and chaos. And like you can't make any decisions like that. Like you're flipping over your parents' like office or their bedroom or whatever, just trying to find stuff is panic. Like that's just panic behavior, right? So planning doesn't make something, it does it certainly it creates peace of mind, it creates a plan, and the goal is to make these moments when they do occur to be less chaotic.
Oops. Did you have anything else? Sorry,
No,
you're
that's
good.
that's all I have to say. Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll ask all the questions at the end. So you guys keep your questions. So let's bring up Kristine next.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I'm Kristine Swisher. I am a Medicare and long-term care insurance specialist. So I help people all over the country with important Medicare decisions and talk about long-term care insurance as well. So next slide. Um, this important information very near and dear to my heart. I watched my mother-in-law So, Sherry, I completely understand what you're going through. I watched my mother-in-law take care of her 100-year-old mother and 104 stepfather. And so I'm very understanding of what that means. I also have been taking care of my mom. So truly, right, we're the sandwich generation. We're either raising kids or have adult kids, and we're watching our parents age. So next slide. One of the ways that you can really start talking about with your family is when are they going to enroll in Medicare and what does that look like? So, this is really kind of an overview of Medicare. And a lot of people, when they turn 65 or retire, because many people are working past 65, is that you get your Medicare benefits. And so, Medicare A is $0 because you've worked your entire life to pay for those benefits. Medicare A is your hospital insurance. When you have stayed overnight in the hospital for 3 evenings, you get your Medicare benefits triggered for Medicare Part A. Medicare Part B is anything that happens outside of the hospital. So, your doctor's visits, blood work, x rays, MRIs, all of that as well. But what people don't realize, and a lot of these words get intertwined, is that Medicare doesn't cover everything. And so there's a large gap. Typically, 20% is not covered. And people are shocked when they retire because, right, their employer has taken care of everything. So there are two options when someone goes into Medicare. You can go on option one and purchase a Medicare supplement. So a lot of times people think that they can just go back to original Medicare and get the supplement. You are you are allowed a guaranteed issue when you first enroll in your Medicare Part B. And this is really important because you can't just go back and forth. If you've been on another option, you may have to answer health questions. So, if you purchase a Medicare supplement for a price every month, you pay that premium on top of your Social Security, and you also purchase a Part D drug plan in addition to your drugs as well. So, all of those costs you pay every month. You can also choose a Medicare Advantage plan, and these are what's really on the news right now. Medicare Advantage Part C, and they umbrella cover all of your A, B, part and your drug plans as well. And so they also cover extra benefits like vision, dental, hearing, sometimes even transportation. But what is important to know is that you assign over your Medicare benefits to the insurance company that you're being managed by. So, for example, in part option two, your Advantage plan, your has to be referrals, authorizations. The insurance company makes the decisions on yes or no for those procedures. And so people often can be frustrated. Let's say if they go to the hospital and they come home and they've got large copays. So it's important to understand because most people say, my parents have Medicare. Well, again, what type of insurance do they have? Do they have original Medicare, which is that red, white, and blue card? Are they paying a supplement? Or do they have an Advantage plan? So that's important. Next slide, Sherry. So this is the Medicare and You book. It comes out every year around October, and you will see a very important page on page 56. So you can go to the next slide. So this year, this is page 56, and I find it very intriguing that in this large book that's sent every year, and this is a tiny page, but right here it says, and if anyone wants this page, I can certainly email them to you. I can certainly email this page to you. But right here in bold, it says Medicare, including a Medicare supplement, does not pay for any caregiving cost in the home or in a facility. And right here, the second bold option also says that it is important to plan on your long term care for the future. And so many people, even healthcare professionals that work in the hospital, maybe they've been a nurse for 40 years, they say, oh, Medicare paid for it. Well, Medicare actually only covers 20 days in a skilled nursing facility. And if you have a Medicare supplement, it can cover up to 100 days. Now, I've even had clients call me and say, Kristine, you told me that I had 20 days that were covered by my Medicare Advantage plan. And I tell them, yes, it is covered. But if the doctor is discharging you because you are not getting better and you feel like you are unsafe to be at home by yourself, unfortunately, the hospital, the doctor, that's their plan of care. And so it is very important to have these plans in place to cover those services. So, next slide. So this is the million dollar page right here. So I took the national average of caregiving, and this is a page that you can look up from Genworth, Care Scout, cost of care. And you can even put in your zip code in your area. And something important to know is that this is the median cost. So right here, monthly cost. So if you were to pay out of pocket for a licensed caregiver agency that works with an agency, they're background checked, vetted, if you had to pay that out of pocket, this is the cost, okay? And most people are shocked that, again, Medicare doesn't cover everything. And it certainly doesn't cover any of these costs. Now, if you move into an assisted living where you cannot be safely in your home, then this is the cost on a median amount. Now, one thing too, people don't realize is that when you move into a facility, they do something called a level of care, where they rate you by points or by tiers. And so if you cannot um, get in and out of your bed and you need a three-person transfer, if you need more medications than the average person, well, this assisted living is going to charge you. So you also have to plan for additional costs on top of the room and board. I remember when my mother-in-law was planning for my mom, she would say, I don't understand. They gave me a bill for $4,000 and they're sending me another bill for another $2,000. Well, that's her level of care that she needed to pay on top of it. Now, it's not for everybody, but just keep that in mind is that when you move in and they need extra things, well, they're going to charge you. Okay. And another thing that a lot of times people don't realize, their mind always goes to a private room nursing home, is that most people actually never make it into a nursing home. Most people today, especially in this country, are being cared for in their home. And if they can't be in their home safely, they move to a facility. Okay. And as you can imagine, care costs are outpacing inflation. And so you can expect at least these to be the cost in the next 25 years. Okay, next slide, Sherry. So the reality of people needing care, obviously you've probably heard that 70% over 65 will need care. But keep in mind is that, and this is something that I hear often, is that people are needing care under 65, and that's due to accidents. Accidents, what I also have found, especially in my age group, is that people's parents are being diagnosed at an earlier stage from early diagnosis. And we see that on the news right now. Bruce Willis, who's been diagnosed. We just recently saw that unfortunately Eric Dane had passed. People are needing care earlier. And so if that plan is not in place and they don't have the assets and the income to pay for care, or unfortunately, they are eligible for Medicaid or in California, Medi-Cal, where they will live in a government-run Medi-Cal or Medicaid facility. Or thirdly, the best way to pay for long-term care services is long-term care insurance. So if they don't have long-term care insurance, well, typically the burden goes on the family or the money has been spent down to pay for care. Next slide. So it's really important to help your parents understand what type of Medicare plan do they have? What is their current health? And if there is a possibility of, having the conversation of what are their care, what are their care choices? Is the care going to be placed on me
Hmm.
or the siblings? Who's going to be in charge of making those healthcare decisions? Typically, it's usually the child that's closest to that aging parent and women, right? The daughter is typically also the one that's going to be the caregiver. So it's really important. And oftentimes with long-term care insurance, people have the misconception of it's too expensive. I may not qualify. I think that we live in a time right now where there are more options available than ever. And in addition, that if you're working with a true long-term care specialist, they should be creative enough to have accessible plans based on that person's health criteria, and they should also be very conscious of your budget. Working with your budget to get an affordable plan where it is not going to break the bank. And this also should be working with your Medicare insurance as well. And then next slide. So if anybody has a long-term care insurance policy and really wants questions on where to start, what they have, maybe their parent doesn't even know, or if they'd like to a review of what type of Medicare insurance, or if they have questions, feel free to give me a call, send me an email. If you scan that QR code, I certainly can help you make those decisions and just give you a good baseline of where they're at. So thanks, Sherry.
Thank you, Kristine. All right, Liz.
Thank you, Sherry. Thanks, Colleen and Kristine. Amazing information. So my name is Liz Faremo. I am the owner of Care Excellence Team. We specialize in senior living options and helping families navigate through that process. Also recently, in the years that I've been doing this and very involved with families, in a lot of different capacities, I decided to also pursue and get a fiduciary license to really help people on a deeper level. But today I'm really just going to be focused on navigating care options, senior living options, what to do in a crisis, some things that you can do to be proactive to avoid some of the pressures of being in a crisis, and what does the world of senior living really look like? What are the costs? I'm in San Diego, so I'll probably go over some of the numbers of what it looks like here in San Diego, just so that you're well informed, and hopefully from these presentations really are able to sit with yourself and start to take some action on evaluating where everything is, having those difficult conversations, but critical conversations with your loved ones, and also getting your own personal affairs in place as well. Next slide. You can go to the next one. So I'll share a little bit about my own caregiving journey.
I think there's a lag.
So you can go back.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, it's okay. So this picture that I had on here, this is a picture of me and my father. our journey together started at a very young age for both of us. My father was 60 years old. I was 27 when I got the phone call from the hospital. He was in another state, and they said he can no longer live on his own. He was no longer fit to care for himself, and I needed to make some big life-changing decisions for him. Um, it was very overwhelming. I had no idea at the age of 27 I would become a caregiver for my father. I had two young children at the time who were in diapers, and we had to drop everything and go pick him up from where he was living at the time and move him to San Diego. And that really started a 15-year journey of navigating almost every option that I can think of under the senior care and senior living world that we had to experience as a family. And my kids were in diapers, my dad was in diapers, and I tell families often, not only do I understand what you're going through because I have a lot of experience as a professional, but I also have a lot of experience as a daughter. I literally know what it's like to have to physically take on that role, changing your father or loved one's diapers, navigating the hospital systems, their medication, making really hard and difficult decisions. And I wish I knew what I know now. And so it's really important that, each of us here on this call as professionals and even just as people getting this information, that we do take it very seriously and we start to take some action towards really making sure that we're a little more prepared. Again, I don't know how anyone at 27 could have anticipated having to become a caregiver so young, but to Kristine's point, a lot of people are being diagnosed very young. I think one of my youngest clients was 32. So very, very hard. But it's happening in this world. So next slide.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to.
I'm watching a thing on aging parents.
Guys, can you mute yourself if you're not already muted? Sorry.
So common challenges. These are some things that I think I like to go over and just help you be aware of, that these are common challenges that our aging population is faced with today. And it really just, it progresses over time, but there are some key things that you can just start to be aware of so that if you start to see these signs, it allows you to start to think about how can I be proactive before the triggers and the crisis happens that we'll go into later. There's a lot of changes in independence, right? So as people are aging, they start to lose the ability to drive. It's getting harder to manage their personal affairs, whether it's bill payments, managing their taxes, making sure bills are getting paid on time, or they're having health decline. Support systems are changing. They've got adult children, friends, family, social services, but a lot of times we're all busy. So they may need a lot more help than we can actually provide them, or they have people around them that are just being consumed with their own personal things. So again, the support system isn't as solid, so it becomes very challenging for them as well. Medical appointments. My mom and my stepdad, they probably have 25 doctor's appointments a month, all kinds of specialists, all kinds of things, information that they have to take on. And it's a lot. It's a lot of information, managing their medication, understanding how to advocate for themselves. So again, it starts to become a challenge for them to keep up with all of this information. Safety concerns are also a challenge, accessibility in the home and mobility. I have a client right now who has been in her home for 70 years. She's 100. Her bathrooms are not equipped to be able to roll into a shower, to navigate safely. Bathrooms are a big place where people have falls because they don't have all the grab bars and roll-in showers. They have the old school tubs that you have to step into. And so the safety at home becomes a huge challenge for our aging population. Changes in activities of daily living. Their ability to dress, keep up with grooming, toileting, bathing, feeding themselves. This progresses over time, right? If you have accessibility issues at home where it's not easy to take a shower, you may not shower as often. And when you're not showering as often, that causes the risk of UTIs. And so there's just a domino effect of things that start to become very challenging for our seniors that, make it become even more and more of a health risk for them. Nutrition is a huge part. when people start to no longer have big families to cook for, they have to figure out how do you cook for just one or two people. A lot of people, clients that we encounter, are eating TV dinners, right? Or they're not eating enough. They're not getting a well-balanced meal. Well, if your nutrition isn't good, that's going to put you at risk of falls. So again, right, you can see the holistic picture of really having to manage the day-to-day things at home and in life that become very challenging as you get older. Loneliness and social isolation and loss, those two things go hand in hand, because oftentimes they may have friends who can't socialize anymore because they have health issues. They lose friends. They also have the loss of a spouse. So those things become very challenging, and again, start to create a decline for our loved ones at home. Next slide, please. What are some sudden triggers? So, right, we talk about some of the challenges they're probably face on the day-to-day, but there are sudden triggers that may occur that causes family members to have to step in and start considering their care options for their loved one. Number one is a fall, right? A fall that can cause a broken hip, anything broken, or hitting of the head. It can cause a physical decline, forcing someone into the hospital, then forcing them into a skilled nursing rehab. And who knows how they're going to come out of that, right? Are they going to actually bounce back? Probably not. They will probably come back with starting to need help with activities of daily living. Now they need help with dressing. Now they need help with toileting, a lot of different things. So falls are a huge trigger. Health condition changes. So if you had a pre-existing condition and now it's just continued to progress, that can be very challenging. Memory impairment, there can be an incident, right? I've got a lot of families who say, well, my mom or my dad or my spouse has dementia, but they're okay at home. They've been there for 30 years. They know they're home. They're on their normal routine. Well, what happens when an event gets triggered, such as them wandering outside the front door and getting confused and not knowing how to come back? Or they're still driving when they shouldn't be driving and they get lost. They don't know how to get back home. Or they forget to turn off the stove or blow up a microwave. Those are the things that start to happen. Again, you start to see a sudden trigger sign that happens and you're like, oh, we really need to start thinking about what we're going to do to implement some care or possibly move them into some form of assisted living. Safety concerns for a home environment cannot safely be supported. Really, really important to think about this. Again, dementia is becoming more and more diagnosed early, and more behaviors that are happening that are really creating the safety concerns. And you don't want to wait until someone's wandering out the front door and they can't be found for several hours, or they hurt themselves, or they're getting behind the wheel and driving when you know they shouldn't be driving. I can't tell you enough, if you have a loved one that you know should not be driving anymore, but you're too afraid to take the keys away, you don't want to deal with an accident. You don't want to deal with that. And so there are different ways that you can work with the doctor, work with the DMV to have their keys and that access taken away if they truly are unsafe on the road. And then lastly, a trigger would be loss. So we work a lot with spouses where they lose their husband or wife. And that can trigger, again, mom or dad's not safe to live at home alone anymore because they've lost the other spouse. Now, what do? Do we bring in a caregiver, or do we actually move them into some form of assisted living? We often see as well, and I'll touch on this real briefly, spouses taking care of the other person. And if the caregiver all of a sudden dies, you now have someone who's been taken care of no longer have that caregiver. So again, that is a trigger that forces families to step in and say, what are we going to do now? Next slide, please. Crisis. So, I feel like whenever it happens, it always feels like a crisis, right? You do a lot of the preparation, but, Sherry and I have talked a little bit too, right? Like, it doesn't matter. It's unexpected. It's something that you don't always want to have to deal with. But when you get the phone call, it is a feeling of a crisis. How big of a crisis depends on how much preparation you do. To Colleen's point, were you proactive in making sure you know what all of the numbers look like, what the paperwork looks like? You've got all the power of attorneys in place. That helps minimize the amount of crisis that you're having to deal with. Same thing that Kristine talked about. So, whenever you're going through it, it's going to feel that way. the emotional toll it takes, but the more you can really have a better understanding and prepare, the less it feels heavy. But these are a lot of things when people are in the middle of it. It's like, okay, there's family dynamics, they're blaming each other. How will we pay for it? I feel guilty. I promised my mom or dad I would never move them out of their home, but how are they going to stay home and pay for the care that is they can't afford? Who can I trust? Who can I call? The hospital will not give you months to make big life-changing decisions. Everything is determined by their insurance coverage. And I'm going to tell you, insurance is not trying to keep you there in the hospital for longer than they have to. As soon as they stabilize you, they are ready to discharge, and they will give you a 48-hour notice. And a lot of times people don't realize that they'll call me and say, well, my mom's going to be in skilled nursing, and Medicare says that they'll cover it for 20 days. Well, yes, technically that is what their coverage is, but that depends on how they do week by week. I have people who get discharged after 7 days because they're not progressing and they're not participating in therapy. So Medicare says, oh, we're cutting them off, and they've got to go somewhere within 48 hours. So it's just really important to really understand how the healthcare system works, and understanding that they will not give you the time that you feel you need to make life-changing decisions on behalf of somebody else. Next slide, please. So what do you do, right? If the crisis comes, you get the phone call, you have the big trigger that happens, what do you actually do? What are your options? Well, as a family, as an individual, you have a couple of different ways that you can support your loved one. First is you can step in, the family steps in, and they really start to take over the caregiving journey, right? You do the grocery shopping, you start navigating the medical appointments, the meal preparation, the physical caregiving, right? Your mom or dad comes home, now they need help with showers, they need help changing if they're independent, incontinent, they need help changing those things, keeping clean. You can assume the role and become the family caregiver. And unfortunately, that is something that a lot of people have to do. It's very difficult because most of the time you may still be working, you still have your own family. So there's a huge sacrifice that's to be made in order to really step in as a family caregiver. My mom, about 8 years ago, started to have her own health decline, and I had to take FMLA. I worked for corporate at the time, and I had to take FMLA for 3 months in order to really step in and take care of her. So that is one option that a lot of people have to take. Especially if they don't have long-term care insurance, or if they don't have financial means to pay for private caregiving. Aging in place is a huge desire. I will tell you, none of my clients' parents or spouses are raising their hand to say, I am so ready to move into assisted living. Most of them are so resistant, and they want to live and die in their home. And I understand that 100%, but the reality of really being able to stay in the home is usually determined on whether or not they have the financial means to pay for private caregiving. And I know that Kristine had shared what the average national median is, but I'll tell you, in San Diego, if many of you are here in San Diego, Southern California, if you were to hire a private home care agency to come into your home and provide 24-hour care, so a caregiver's there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it is anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000 a month right now. And that's why you probably drive down the street and you're like, wow, there is another assisted living opening, and another assisted living, and another assisted living. And the reason for that is because the ability for people to actually stay home and pay for that is not realistic for most. So moving into an assisted living community where they can get 24-hour care is a little more realistic, because the price of that is typically anywhere, it could be upwards of that much as well, depending on how nice of a place you're going into. But really decent, good places are probably averaging anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 a month. So, again, you can age in place and stay home, but you can do that for a period of time up until it becomes financially not feasible anymore and no longer safe. And then the third option, again, my bullet's a little off, but the third option is to move into an assisted living community. And I'm going to dive into a little bit of what that looks like. Next slide. So senior living options, I really bubbled this into 4 different categories. There are so many options out there, so many that it becomes overwhelming and paralyzing for a lot of people. Pricing is all over the place as well. It really just depends on, location and a lot of variations. But I do feel comfortable to say there's 4 different categories that senior living falls into. The first one is independent living. So ideally, in this day and age, people are going to be a little more proactive. They realize that keeping up a home and really trying to maintain their current health conditions and really thrive well is really hard to do at home. So they want to move into independent living in the senior living world. And that provides a carefree environment where housekeeping, maintenance, meals, transportation, activities are all provided. It really gives a lot of flexibility and a lot of just security and safety for seniors to move into independent living sooner rather than later, instead of having to move in when they only need care. The second option is assisted living. What I do want to make sure I'm clear about is that independent living and assisted living typically coexist together. So assisted living just means they're licensed through the state to provide physical care, shower, dressing, medication management. So we have a lot of buildings that you might drive by that offer both. There's independent living people there. There's also people that are getting assistance as well. You get all the benefits of independent living, but you also get the care support that's readily available if needed. The third option is memory care. So some places offer a memory care option. It's a more secured environment, and it's really for those that are diagnosed with dementia. They are a wander risk. They are unsafe to themselves and others with possibly confusing, food with cleaning products, or they can't quite keep conversations going. Memory care is a very safe environment that allows them to have the freedom to live with others also having dementia and be safe and comfortable. And then the last option is board and care residential homes. And those are residential care homes that are typically licensed with 6 to 15 residents. They offer 24-hour care. They're licensed through the state of California, but they offer more of like a home-like environment that allows people, usually when we're having people go into these small care homes, they really need a lot of care, a lot of attention. And a smaller environment makes more sense because the ratio is smaller. But these are the 4 different categories that kind of fall into senior living. I will tell you that a lot of times my 85, 90, 95-year-old clients are saying, I am never going into a home. Well, a lot of times they believe that the home is like it was 50 years ago when maybe they were dealing with it with their own loved one. And it's that very old nursing home type of environment that's very scary and can be very, very depressing often. Well, the world of senior living today is very different. And there's a lot of luxury that's available. There's a lot of freedom. There's a lot of independence that's available. And it really does allow for people to thrive, and it allows for people to really have the support and care that they need that they may not be able to have at home. Next slide. Here's an example of some of the services that assisted living that people can expect to receive. They can manage your medication. There's assistance with activities of daily living, bathing, grooming, escorting services. They do laundry services, housekeeping, meals are included. They can monitor some of your vitals if you need that. Some places, if you're diabetic, they can provide diabetic care. They can help with at hospice care as well. If people want to age in place at an assisted living community, hospice care can come in as well. And so there's a wide variety of different services that are available to people when they consider moving into some form of an assisted living community. Again, staying home is an option, and sometimes that can be sustainable if maybe you only need 4 hours a day, 8 hours a day of a private caregiver to come in. But as soon as someone starts to make that change and they start to need 24-hour care around the clock, that's usually when people are really thinking about maybe it is time to consider some form of an assisted living for their loved one or for themselves. How does a senior placement person help you through navigating this process? I will tell you, when I was dealing with this with my father, way before I got into the senior living world as a professional, we moved him probably 10 different times over the course of 10 years. Is that normal? Not really. But we didn't know, right? Every time there was a crisis, he had a health change, the place he was living said, well, we can't provide the care that he needs anymore. So he's got to move again. And so we'd move him again and we just find him the next place that met our budget. I felt like it was close by and it worked for that period of time. Sure enough, we'd have to move him again. And so the ability for you to have an expert who can come alongside you and really help you anticipate what the future might be for your loved one, what to look for in all the different senior living communities, is really important. And I believe that for my father, we probably wouldn't have moved him as many times as we did, if I had someone that could help us navigate the process. It's very overwhelming, and sometimes there's so much information out there that it becomes paralyzing that you don't do anything, right? I'm sure all of us can sit here and say, well, I know I need to take care of that. I know I need to get a trust. I know I need to talk to my parents and have that hard conversation. But because it can be so overwhelming, we don't take any action. But I will tell you that it is important for you to really just lock in with really specific experts that can help you navigate that process, answer questions that you have, and allow you to take one step at a time to make sure that you're prepared and you know what to do. Usually, if you're working with a senior placement person, there's a lot of people that are local, that do this type of work, that are small agencies that really hold your hand through the process. There's also big search engines online that you can put your information online, and then you start to get a bunch of sales calls. I recommend you finding someone who's local, and they will do an in-depth care assessment for you. They'll help you research 3 to 4 locations that you can go and visit with to see if it's a fit for your loved one. They also, if you want to keep them at home, they can connect you with 2 or 3 home care agencies that are trusted and vetted, that can come in and help you provide care at your home as well. They can be your liaison between you and the locations. They assist you in facilitating a lot of the paperwork. There's a lot of resource management. So if you need move managers, realtors, estate planning, notaries, they are well connected with different resources for you to do that as well. And then really good agencies are going to continue to stay in contact with you to follow up. 30, 60, 90 days is what we usually do. But really just making sure that you're set, and that if you need any help or advocacy, they can help you. So if you're ever working with an agency that charges, there are other alternatives that don't charge you anything, because it is very costly to make some type of a move or to incorporate home care into your home. Make sure you just research a lot of different options that you do have available to help you navigate that process. Next slide. And lastly, this is my contact information. If you guys have any questions, feel free to just reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have just in general. My biggest recommendation for anyone on this call is just to really think about what's happening right now, what you anticipate could happen based on the information you've collected, and just start to prepare, so that you know how to navigate that potential crisis that might be coming, whether it's for yourself or for your loved one. And if there's anything I've learned as well as I've gone through this with my parents, is I've focused so much on making sure I knew what was going on with them, that I've realized how much I also need to make sure I have my own affairs in place. I have children, and I'm in my mid 40s, and I need to make sure I have my trust in order, and I have all my power of attorneys and things like that. So education, but also taking action and actually doing the things that we've all recommended is really important. Thank you.
What questions do you guys have? I'm having a hard time. I can't even find the chat. So if you have something in the chat, bring it up. If not, blurt it out. You're all muted, so you'll have to unmute yourself first. I did have a question. Where is it? Okay, no, was it Colleen, I think? So if you have a power of attorney
Mhm.
for finances and health and you're already on their bank accounts, it doesn't go to probate, right?
Right. So
Okay.
just to clarify though too, power of attorney has nothing to do with what happens to that account essentially when somebody passes.
Okay.
So when you that's co-ownership. So co-ownership, if like your mom puts you on her account, you will always have access to it. And when she passes, or if you pass, it automatically goes to the other owner. So it avoids probate in that situation.
Okay, good. Good, good.
Power of
Um,
attorney would give you access if you weren't on the account.
okay, perfect. So what just I'll just say for like for my situation, we had some things planned with my parents, not as much as I would have liked. And it's the older they got, I feel like the more stubborn they got. So if you can have these conversations early where nobody's sick, that would probably be the best way to do it. But even with the preparation that we have, I still feel like Liz said, it's like crisis time. And I called her last week and I said, it's coming. I can feel it. And sure enough, yesterday and today, and I'll be leaving for New York tomorrow. So have the conversations. They are difficult conversations to have, especially when you're dealing with people that are stubborn. It makes it a little bit harder. So I think if you guys take anything away from this today, it's that you can be prepared, but it's still going to feel like chaos when it happens because like I think all three of you said, like you have your own children, you have a career or a business, maybe you live across country like I do, and it's just the feeling is I didn't even expect it to be this bad. And it's not like in complete crisis mode, but it is headed that way. So I would just say it's having the conversations, make sure you have documents in place, you've talked to them about care, you understand who to call. I mean, I'm going through that right now where they have each have like six doctors each, and I only one of them is letting me talk to them right now, and I have to show them the power of attorney. So I feel like when you remove that uncertainty, it protects your relationship. And that's what matters most in the end, is that you're protecting your relationship and you know what that other person wants. We've created a aging parents resource guide that has Colleen, Kristine, and Liz's information in it and just a little bit of information about what we went over today. So if you're interested in that, you can scan the QR code and I'll probably send the link out after the call as well. So you can get it there. I will send the recording out. I know we had like 40 something people registered and I get it, like life happens, right? So I'll be sending the recording out to everyone. I feel like this information is so important. And I appreciate all three of you ladies. You've all become really good friends of mine over the last 5 years or whatever. And my husband and I have used them for everything. So they're very trustworthy. And I wouldn't have anybody on that I hadn't used myself or that I didn't feel comfortable recommending. So any other connections that you guys need, I'm here to help you. I feel like I'm a pretty good connector, and we will have some more of these calls. We have a CPA that's going to be on, someone that does reverse mortgages, moving company, and all of those things. So I think it's very important. There's a lot of people that are in this transition period of their life, and I know everybody needs as much help as possible. Anybody else have anything before we wrap up? And you guys can reach out to me afterwards as well if you don't want to bring it up now. All right. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a great day and have those conversations. They're hard, but they're worth having. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.